Right now, on your phone, you probably have somewhere between 5 and 15 apps for investing. Maybe you've got Robinhood, Webull, some crypto exchange you opened once, maybe a trading platform your friend told you about. You installed them all because each one claimed to be the one, the best one, the one that would finally make you money. But here's what I want you to understand before we go any further. Billionaires have fewer apps than you do. Warren Buffett, one of the richest men alive, has literally one way he invests money. 1. Steve Jobs wore the same black turtleneck every single day of his life, even though he could afford literally anything. Elon Musk could be doing 1,000 different things, but instead he says no to 999 of them. And I'm about to show you why this matters so much that it might completely change how you think about getting rich. The secret isn't what you choose, it's what you refuse to choose. You're probably thinking this doesn't make sense. Having options should be good, right? Freedom to choose, freedom to experiment, freedom to find what works best for you. That's what we've been told our whole lives. More choices equals more freedom equals more success. Except that's not how it works, and the proof is sitting in your pocket right now. Think about this morning. Let's say you woke up and decided today's the day you finally start investing. You're serious this time. You're going to actually do it. So what did you do? You opened Google and searched best brokers. And there they were. Hundreds of results. You clicked on the first one, then the second, then the third. You read about Vanguard, Fidelity, Charles Schwab, Interactive Brokers. You watched a YouTube video comparing 5 of them, then another video comparing different ones. Then you went to Reddit to ask what people actually use. Then you checked Twitter to see what traders are talking about. And 2 hours later, you hadn't opened a single account. But you'd read about 30 different options. You had 17 browser tabs open, you'd watched 4 videos, and you still weren't sure which one was right. This is the trap, and almost nobody talks about it because we're all living in it together. Here's what happens inside your brain when you're staring at too many choices. Your mind starts running calculations. Each option looks good in different ways. This one has better fees, that one has better interface, this other one has more research tools. Your brain is trying to find the perfect choice, the optimal choice, the one where you make no mistakes, but perfect doesn't exist. So your brain keeps analyzing and analyzing and analyzing until you get tired, until you give up, until you think, you know what, maybe I'll start investing next month when I've done more research. Except next month you'll have new options to evaluate, new apps will have been released, new strategies will have gone viral on TikTok, and you'll start the analysis over again. I'm going to tell you something that sounds counterintuitive, but it's absolutely true. The poorer you are, the more choices you have, and the richer you are, the fewer choices you have. It's backwards from what you think, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. Think about someone who's wealthy. They're not sitting around trying 5 different investment strategies. They picked one that works, they stuck with it. Their morning routine isn't 15 different options for what to eat, it's the same breakfast. Their business doesn't pivot to chase every new trend, it stays focused on one core thing that works. It's like they've taken the entire universe of possibilities and voluntarily made it smaller. They've locked themselves into a system, and that system is what set them free. Meanwhile, someone who's struggling financially is constantly in choice mode. Should I try this side hustle or that side hustle? Should I invest in crypto or stocks or real estate? Should I start dropshipping or affiliate marketing or content creation? Should I buy this course or that course? Every week there's a new opportunity, a new app, a new strategy that supposedly works better than the last thing they tried. So they're always jumping, always switching, always in the research phase, never in the building phase. You know what's crazy? There's actually neuroscience behind why this happens. When you switch from one task to another, and I mean actually switch, not pause something and come back to it, but like switch your focus, your brain needs somewhere between 15 and 25 minutes to get back to full productivity. That's not an estimate. That's from multiple peer-reviewed studies. It's not an opinion. It's how your brain actually works. So let's do some math here. If you're someone who switches between apps, platforms, courses, strategies, even just 5 times a day, that's 2 hours right there. 2 hours a day of your brain essentially wasting time trying to get focused again. 5 days a week, that's 10 hours. Every month, it's 40 hours. Every year, it's more than 480 hours. That's roughly 3 months of full-time work. Every single year, just lost to context switching, just wasted because you can't commit to one thing. And that's only 5 switches a day. Most people I know are switching way more than that. Now multiply that by 5 years, by 10 years, by 20 years. We're talking about thousands of hours. We're talking about months and months of productive time just evaporating because of the inability to stay focused on one thing. And if you're making $100 an hour, which is actually a pretty decent rate, we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars just gone. But here's the thing that really gets me. It's not just about time and money. It's about results. When you focus on one thing deeply, you become good at it. When you jump between 10 things, you become mediocre at all of them. And mediocre doesn't make money. Excellent makes money. Deep expertise makes money. Mastery makes money. But you can't master something while you're simultaneously trying to master 9 other things. Warren Buffett famously said that when he was young, he had a list of companies he wanted to invest in. Hundreds of them. He went through the list and he eliminated it down to 20. The very best ones, the ones he knew the most about, the ones he had the most conviction in. Then he eliminated it down to 10, and then he eliminated it down to even fewer. And he invested the vast majority of his money in those. He didn't try every investment opportunity. He didn't chase every trend. He narrowed his focus obsessively. And in doing so, he became the most successful investor probably probably in the history of investing. You could say the same thing about Steve Jobs at Apple. The company that was constantly known for having too many choices, Apple basically does the opposite internally. When Jobs came back to Apple in the late 90s, one of the first things he did was eliminate 90% of the product line. He got rid of all these different Mac computers, all these different varieties. He said, we're going to make one laptop and one desktop and one iMac, and we're going to make them absolutely perfectly. That constraint is what allowed them to innovate so aggressively, because they weren't spreading their resources and attention across 1,000 different products. They were going deep on a few things. Same with Elon Musk. I know that sounds funny because he's involved in so many different companies, Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, the Boring Company, but actually he's incredibly focused. He's not trying to optimize all of these companies equally. He's focused on the core missions, and he's also extremely famous for saying no. Like, aggressively no. People pitch him ideas constantly and he says no to almost all of them. He said no to 1,000 investment opportunities to focus on the things he actually believes in. And that's why he's been able to accomplish things that people thought were impossible. So why don't we do this? Why don't more of us embrace this strategy? Why aren't we all out here narrowing down to one platform, one strategy, one system, one path? I think there are a few reasons, and I want to be honest about this. The first reason is that having lots of options feels like freedom. It genuinely does. Like, I have so many possibilities, so many potential paths. That feels good psychologically. It feels like opportunity. It feels like I'm not trapped, but it's a false sense of freedom. Real freedom isn't having unlimited options. Real freedom is being good at something. Real freedom is having money. Real freedom is not having to stress about whether you made the right choice, and that comes from committing to something and going deep. The second reason is what I call the FOMO tax, the fear of missing out tax. You see other people succeeding on different platforms or different strategies, and you think, oh man, I should be doing that too. I'm missing out. But here's the truth. You're not missing out by staying focused. You're missing out by never going deep enough on anything to see real results. The third reason, and this might be the most honest one, is that diving deep is hard. It's actually terrifying, because if you commit to one thing and it doesn't work out, you have to confront the fact that maybe you failed. You can't blame the strategy anymore. You can't say, oh well, I didn't pick the right platform. You have to look in the mirror and think, maybe I didn't execute this well enough. Maybe I didn't understand the market. Maybe I'm just not good at this. That's scary. So it's easier to jump, to try the next thing. Because as long as you're still looking, as long as you're still searching, as long as you haven't committed yet, you never have to fail. You're just still in the research phase. You're still looking for the perfect opportunity. But the research phase never ends. The search never concludes, because there's always another app, always another strategy, always another option. And while you're researching, someone else who committed to one path a year ago is ahead of you. They're a year of focused work ahead of you, and that gap only gets bigger. This is where I want to tell you about something that happened that made me realize how serious this is. I was talking to someone a couple months ago who's been trying to start an online business for almost 6 years. 6 years. And in those 6 years, they've tried, and I'm not exaggerating, they've tried probably 15 different business models. Dropshipping, affiliate marketing, digital products, consulting, coaching, content creation on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, paid ads, organic growth, email marketing. They've bought more than 200 courses. They've tried more strategies than most people know exist. And after 6 years, they still haven't made a single dollar. Not one. They've made $0. They've spent probably $30,000-$40,000 on courses and apps and tools, and they have nothing to show for it except experience with a lot of different things that they didn't go deep enough on to actually master. And I asked them, I said, if you had picked literally any one of those business models and just stayed with it for a year, stayed with it hard, went deep, really learned it inside and out, how much do you think you'd be making right now? And they just kind of stared at me, because they knew the answer. They probably would be making money. Maybe not a lot, maybe $500, $1,000 a month, but something real. Instead, they have nothing except a 6-year education in jumping around, in starting and stopping, in forever being the beginner, and that cost them maybe $100,000 in potential income that they left on the table because they couldn't stop looking for the next shiny thing. This is happening to millions of people right now. Millions. Everyone's got this vague sense that they should be doing something online to make extra money, or build a business, or invest for the future. And there's so much information available, and so many tools available, and so many opportunities available that it's actually paralyzing. And so they spin their wheels, and they stay exactly where they are, and they blame the opportunities, the market, the economy, anything except for the one thing that's actually holding them back, which is their inability to commit. So here's what I want to ask you right now, and I want you to really think about this. What if the path to wealth isn't actually about finding more options? What if it's the opposite? What if it's about voluntarily eliminating options? What if it's about narrowing your focus so dramatically that you become dangerous in your expertise? What if it's about building one system so well that you become rich not despite your limitations but because of them? I'm going to take this somewhere more practical now, because understanding the problem is great, but you need to know how to actually fix it. And the fix is simpler than you think, but also harder than you think. Simpler because it's straightforward, harder because it requires you to do something that goes against every instinct you have in 2025. Let me tell you what I discovered when I started looking at how wealthy people actually operate. I was curious about this because I wanted to understand if this one system mentality was just a coincidence or if there was something deeper going on. So I started studying the actual daily habits of people who've built significant wealth, and what I found was almost shocking in how consistent it was. Ray Dalio, who runs Bridgewater Associates and has been one of the most successful hedge fund managers in history, has this idea he calls radical transparency with radical truth. But what that actually means in practice is that he has one framework, one way of looking at markets, one decision-making process, and he applies it to everything. He doesn't change his approach based on what's trendy or what's getting talked about on financial media. He sticks to his system. Jeff Bezos famously said that he makes decisions based on whether they're reversible or irreversible. Reversible decisions you can make quickly because you can undo them. Irreversible decisions you need to spend time on. But the key thing is, he's already decided this system for making decisions. He's not reinventing his decision-making process for each decision. He's using the framework, the system, and that consistency is what allows Amazon to move so fast while still being thoughtful. I read about this investor, Bill Miller, who beat the S&P 500 for 15 consecutive years. 15 years! Do you understand how hard that is? Most professional investors can't do that. And when they asked him his secret, he literally said it was because he stayed focused on a core set of principles. He didn't chase performance. He didn't jump into whatever was working that quarter. He had a philosophy about investing and he stayed true to it. And here's the thing that really struck me. None of these people seem stressed. None of them seem like they're constantly second-guessing themselves or wondering if they should be doing something else. They seem calm. They seem like they know exactly what they're doing and why they're doing it. And I realized that's probably because they've already made the hard choice. They've already decided. So they don't have to keep deciding every single day. This is where most people get it wrong. They think success comes from making better choices. But actually, success comes from making fewer choices and making them well. Success comes from deciding once and then executing that decision over and over and over again until it pays off. Think about your own life for a second. How much mental energy do you spend on decisions? Not big decisions. I'm talking about all the little ones. What to eat, what to wear, what to check on your phone first, what platform to work on today, what course to take, what to read, what to watch. Your brain is running a background program of constant decision making, and every single one of those decisions uses up a portion of your mental energy. And there's only so much mental energy you have in a day. There's research that suggests the average person makes about 35,000 decisions per day. 35,000. Most of them are small, but they all drain the same resource. So by the time you get to the important decisions, the ones about your money, your business, your future, you're already exhausted. You're already out of mental energy. You're already in a state where you can't think clearly. This is called decision fatigue, and it's real. It's measurable. Studies have shown that people make worse decisions when they're tired from making other decisions. A judge is more likely to give harsh sentences later in the day than early in the morning, even for the same crimes. It's because the decision-making capacity has been depleted. Your brain literally gets tired from making choices. So what do the most successful people do? They eliminate as many decisions as possible, they automate them, they create systems and routines that mean they don't have to decide. Steve Jobs wearing the same turtleneck every day isn't about fashion. It's about not wasting mental energy on deciding what to wear. Mark Zuckerberg wears the same gray t-shirt for the same reason. They're protecting their decision-making capacity for the things that actually matter. This is why having one system is so powerful. Because if you've committed to one investment platform, one business strategy, one way of approaching your finances, you're not spending mental energy on deciding which one to use. That decision is already made. You can focus your energy on actually executing the strategy well. And here's what I want you to really understand. The wealthier someone is, the more precious their time becomes, and the less they can afford to waste it on reversible decisions. A billionaire doesn't spend an hour comparing phone plans. They just pick one and move on. They certainly don't spend 6 hours researching the perfect smartphone. They just buy what works. Why? Because their time is worth thousands of dollars an hour. Spending an hour researching something that costs $100 is literally wasting money. That hour could have been spent on something that generates income or builds their business. But when you're not wealthy yet, you think you can't afford to waste time on these decisions. You think you need to optimize everything, find the cheapest option, the best platform, the most efficient route. And so you spend hours researching to save maybe $20. You've traded high-value time for low-value savings. You've made the poor person's trade. Now I want to talk about what actually happens to your financial results when you commit to one system. And this is where it gets real interesting because there's a pattern. I looked at this data from a couple of investment studies and it's pretty eye-opening. People who stick with one investment platform and one investment strategy for at least 5 years significantly outperform people who switch platforms or strategies. And I don't mean just slightly, I mean meaningfully. We're talking about sometimes double-digit differences in returns. Why? Because when you stick with something, you actually get good at it. You understand it deeply. You know how to navigate it. You understand the tax implications. You understand the fee structure. You understand when to buy and when to hold. And that deep understanding translates to better results versus someone who's constantly switching. They never get past the learning curve. They're always making beginner mistakes. They're always paying switching costs. They're always starting over with a new system that they don't fully understand. The same thing applies to business. If you commit to one business model for real, like you're actually going to do this for a year or two or 5, you will inevitably get good at it. You'll learn what works. You'll build an audience or customer base. You'll create systems and processes. You'll become an expert. But if you're jumping from one thing to another every few months, you never get to the part where it actually works. You're constantly in the startup phase, and the startup phase is the hardest phase. It's where you make the least money and have to work the hardest. So if you never get past the startup phase, you never get to the part where you actually make money. I want to tell you about someone named James Clear who wrote a book called Atomic Habits. And in that book, he talks about this idea that small changes can lead to remarkable results. But here's the thing that most people miss about his framework. It only works if you're consistent. The results don't come from doing something amazing once, they come from doing something small repeatedly. 1% better every single day. And you can't do that if you're switching what you're doing every week. The math on this is actually insane. If you improve by just 1% every day over the course of a year, you're not 37% better, you're more than 37 times better. You're exponentially better. But that only works if you're improving at the same thing. If you're switching to a new thing every month, you never get the compounding benefit. You're always starting back at 0% better. And here's where I think the real wake-up call should come. Think about where you were financially 5 years ago. Where are you now? Are you significantly better off, or are you roughly in the same place? Because if you're in the same place, and if you've been trying a lot of different things in that time, that's not bad luck. That's the natural result of not staying focused. Now imagine if you had picked one thing 5 years ago, one business model, one investment strategy, one skill, and you had committed to it. Where would you be now? Would you have made 6 figures? Would you have built a passive income stream? Would you have saved $100,000? Probably. Most things that are worth doing work if you actually do them long enough. So the question becomes, what's stopping you? And I think the answer is usually one of a few things. The first is that you're scared. You're scared that if you commit to one thing and it doesn't work out, you'll have failed. So it feels safer to keep trying different things because that way you never have to actually fail. You're just still looking. The second is that you're addicted to novelty. Your brain likes new things. New feels interesting. New feels like progress, whereas deepening your expertise in something you're already doing feels boring, feels like you're not making progress, but that's just your brain lying to you. The real progress is invisible until suddenly it isn't. The third is that you're comparing your beginning to someone else's middle. You see someone killing it on one platform and you think, man, I should be doing that too. But what you're not seeing is the years of work that person put in before they started killing it. You're seeing the result, not the process. So you think the platform is the thing, not the commitment. Okay, so here's what I want you to actually do about this. And I'm going to be very specific because vague advice is useless. First, you need to write down 3 things. Not more, not less. 3. These are 3 areas where you've been jumping around in the last 3 months. Could be investing, could be your business, could be health and fitness, could be learning a skill. Just write down 3 things you've been dabbling in but not committing to. Take 30 seconds and write them down. Actually do this. Don't just think about it. Now, I want you to eliminate 2 of them. Just cross them off. Those are done. You're not going back to them for 90 days. During those 90 days, you're not going to read content about them. You're not going to check in on them. You're not going to wonder if you made the wrong choice. They're done. You chose one thing and the other 2 are off the table. The one thing that's left, that's your system for the next 90 days. That's what you're all in on. And here's the key part. You're not trying to find the perfect version of it. You're using what you already have access to. If you're going to focus on investing, pick one of the brokerage accounts you already have. Don't spend a week researching a better one. Use what's available. If you're going to focus on business, pick one platform. YouTube, Twitter, email, one. That's what you have for the next 90 days. During those 90 days, you're going to do one specific thing every single day related to your chosen system. Not perfectly, not amazingly, just consistently. If it's investing, you spend 15 minutes every day learning about the market, reading financial news, understanding the asset class better. If it's business, you create content, you work on your thing, you show up, you make it real. You're not trying to make $100,000 in 90 days. You're not trying to become an expert in 90 days. You're just trying to show up consistently and go a little bit deeper than you did yesterday. That's it. And here's what's going to happen. After 30 days, it's going to feel boring. You're going to want to try something else. You're going to see someone else doing something interesting and you're going to want to pivot. That's normal. That's your brain getting restless, but you're going to ignore that impulse. You're going to keep going because the magic doesn't happen in the first 30 days. It happens in month 2 and month 3. After 60 days, you're going to start noticing something. You're starting to understand how your system actually works. You're seeing patterns. Things that seemed confusing are starting to make sense. You're building confidence. And after 90 days, you're going to have genuine results. Not life-changing results necessarily, but real results. You'll have built an audience or made some money or made progress on your goal. And that's when everything changes because now you have momentum. Now you have proof that this works. Now you have a reason to keep going. And here's the beautiful part. Once you get to that point, once you've seen real results from committing to one thing, you won't want to jump anymore. You'll want to keep going with it. You'll want to deepen it. You'll want to master it because now you understand that this is how it actually works. This is how you actually make progress. This is how you actually build wealth. Not by doing everything, by doing one thing brilliantly. I know this sounds simple and it is, but simple is not the same as easy. The easy thing would be to keep jumping around, to keep looking for the next opportunity, to keep living in the research phase where you never have to actually face whether you're capable or not. The hard thing is saying no. It's committing to something. It's staying with it even when it gets boring. It's ignoring the shiny object syndrome that our brains are wired for. It's understanding that real success doesn't feel exciting in the moment. It feels like repetition. It feels like discipline. It feels like boring consistency. But boring consistency is what builds wealth. Boring consistency is what builds businesses. Boring consistency is what builds expertise. Boring consistency is what separates the people who make it from the people who stay exactly where they are. So here's my question for you, and I want you to answer this in your head right now. What's the one thing? If you could only commit to one thing for the next 90 days, what would it be? What's the thing that if you actually did it, if you actually went deep on it, would change your financial situation? What's the thing you know you should do but you haven't committed to? Because that's the thing. That's your answer. Your brain already knows what you should be doing. You don't need another app. You don't need another course. You don't need another strategy. You need to actually do the thing you already know to do. And the wealthy people in the world, they figured this out a long time ago. They stopped looking for the next thing and they started executing the current thing. They stopped keeping their options open and they started closing them off. They stopped giving themselves choices and they started committing to one path. And that choice, that commitment, that's what made all the difference. You can do the same thing starting right now, right after you finish watching this video. You can pick one thing, you can commit to it, you can ignore everything else for 90 days. And I promise you, 90 days from now, you'll be in a completely different position than you are today. The only question is, will you actually do it? Or will you watch this video, feel inspired for a few minutes, and then go back to doing the same thing you've always done? Because I'll be honest with you, most people are going to choose the second option. Most people are going to feel the weight of what I just said, and they're going to think, yeah, I should do that. And then they're going to get home, and they're going to open Instagram, and they're going to see someone else's success story, and they're going to think, wait, maybe I should be doing that instead. And they're going to keep jumping. But you're not most people. You watched this whole video. You stuck with it. You got to this point, and that means you're someone who's actually thinking about this stuff, someone who's actually trying to improve, someone who's capable of change. So do this one thing for me. This video has a link in the description. Comment below. Tell me what your one thing is. Tell me what you're committing to for the next 90 days. Make it public. Make it real. Because when you make it public, when you tell other people, you're way more likely to actually follow through. You're creating accountability. You're creating a reason to keep going, even when it gets hard, and then actually do it for 90 days. No switching, no researching alternatives, no wondering if you made the wrong choice. Just commitment, just showing up, just going 1% deeper every single day. That's how you become the kind of person who gets rich. That's how you become the kind of person who builds something meaningful. That's how you become the kind of person who doesn't need infinite options because you've mastered one path so well that it's all you need. The choice is yours. The system is simple. The only variable left is you.